Welcome to this video where I'm going to be in conversation with Kim Grant. So I'm really excited about this video because today I'm going to be talking to Kim Grant. Now, if you're not familiar with Kim's work, she's a YouTuber with nearly 35,000 subscribers. Now, when I set up my channel, she was an inspiration to get me going. And a few weeks ago, I saw one of her videos talking about the mindset in photography. And this got me thinking that we've got some very similar ideas when it comes to our channels. And so today I'm going to be talking to Kim about why she enjoys her photography. So without further ado, let's welcome Kim to the channel. So hi there, Kim.
Hello, thank you very much for having me.
And thank you so much for doing this today. I really do appreciate your time and having a chat with me. So for those people who are watching my channel, this is the first time I've had a guest on the channel, so I'm a bit new to it, so things may go wrong, but I'm going to try and keep everything in and you'll just see our conversation. So first of all, Kim, would you like to tell people who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so my name's Kim Grant. I'm a nature photographer. I've got a YouTube channel. Yeah, I kind of class myself, I guess, as like an online presenter these days. And I'm now a podcaster as we're speaking right now. The third episode of my new podcast has been released. So yeah, I've got many hats, but they all link to photography and creating content online and getting people out into nature with their cameras.
Yeah, we're definitely going to talk a little bit more about your podcast and your new ventures that you're setting up a little bit later. But I was really interested when I listened to your first podcast. You were talking about how you got into nature and how when you were very young, nature was all around you, and that's really shaped your love of nature to today. So, would you like to tell us a little bit more about your early life and how nature influences you now?
Yeah, of course. So I was born and brought up in the northeast of Scotland, and I pretty much was surrounded by nature my whole childhood. I lived in the countryside in this little cottage surrounded by fields until the age of about 5, and then I moved to the coast, right on top of a cliff top. And lived there for about 3 years, and then just moved down the road. So, yeah, I was constantly surrounded by nature my whole childhood. We never went abroad as a family. We'd always stay in Scotland to go up to the Highlands and enjoy like the West Coast and the Isle of Skye and all those places. So yeah, it was beautiful, really, really beautiful. And I've just always loved nature. I just love being out and about in nature and just embracing the beauty of it all, really. And yeah, now it kind of inspired me really when I was 16 to pick up my first camera and just start photographing everything that was going on around me. And yeah, it's like I just now the only photography I do is outdoors. I don't do really any indoor work at all. It's all about connecting to nature and having that deep passion about it. It's where I feel most free and most alive, and I just love being outside with my camera.
Mm. It is really clear when you watch any of your videos or listen to the podcast, just how deep your connection is with nature. Um, I know that you were in the service profession. You were a nurse at one point, and I used to be a teacher. And they're both fairly stressful jobs. And I know at one point while I was teaching, I did suffer from mental health issues. And definitely at the time, um, taking photographs really did help me. It gave me a bit of an outlet. It gave me something to take my mind off just the worries that I was feeling at the time. And so, if that's okay with you, can you tell us a little bit about some of the struggles you had and how photography helped you? Because I think one of the things that stood out in your podcast was the phrase that you said, it saved your life. And I found that really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, photography definitely saved my life. So I had quite severe depression and anxiety throughout my teenage years. And yeah, it was just a very, very dark period of time. I didn't really feel like I belonged in the world. I felt very isolated, very alone. I was always ill as a teenager, always ill. I caught every bug, cold, flu going. I was always in and out of hospital with various weird stuff going on. They could never completely diagnose. I had no energy. So they eventually diagnosed me with chronic
Mm.
fatigue syndrome. And I had just loads of issues with digestion and nutrition and everything. And all this kind of played together with the emotional turmoil I was going through. And through, discovering myself as I've got older, I realized that all these health issues were related to my mental and emotional well-being. So when I found photography at the age of 16, it was a life-changing moment for me because I'd getting out into nature most evenings and walking down to my local beach after school, it gave me that kind of peace and solace. I didn't really feel particularly close to anybody when I was a teenager. Yes, I had friends and I had a family, but I didn't have a very deep connection with anybody. I just felt like an outsider. I was into different things and people my own age, and a lot of people I was hanging around with weren't the kindest and nicest of people. Um, so going out to the beach most evenings and just immersing myself in nature was huge. And then I decided one day when I was watching the sunset, how can I connect with this more deeply? I'd always been a very creative person. I loved art and English and writing at school. And it just kind of seemed really natural for me to then go, maybe I'll buy a camera and start photographing these sunsets. Because I realized that every single sunset was different. And it all just began with a little pocket point and shoot camera. And then I got my first DSLR when I was 16. And it began an incredible journey for me because photography gave me an outlet. It gave me a deeper connection with nature, which I was already really interested in. And it gave me a voice actually, it allowed me to find, to connect, to shut kind of my mind off from all my worries and distract myself from my physical health problems as well. And then throughout my nursing time, studying to be a nurse is it's not the easiest of kind of training to go through. You deal with a lot of things, a lot of obviously very ill people. You deal with death. It's a very stressful profession to be in. So I did 3 years of training, 3 years qualified after I'd finished my training, and photography ran throughout that whole time. When I was on my days off, when I had the energy, I would try and make the effort to go out and do photography and keep that connection with nature going. And in fact, when I was working on the wards, I worked on the top floor of my local hospital. And every morning when I'd see the sunrise, I just used to think, "I wish I was out there with my camera." It was just this constant thought. So yeah, I always
Mm.
made sure when I was on holiday from work or had a few days off that I'd make the effort to get out because I realized how much of a positive impact it had on me and how it really helped me to get through those darker days.
Mm.
So yeah, photography is huge for me, and I don't know, without it, I don't know. It's difficult. There's been 2 periods in my life when I've been severely depressed to the point where I didn't wanna be alive anymore. And I do think photography, without that, I would never have found that outlet and that connection to something bigger than me. So I do genuinely think that photography combined with nature did save my
Mm.
life. And
Mm.
yeah, I really do believe that.
I definitely find now when I'm out either taking photographs of birds or landscapes that it is so life affirming. I made a video just the other day, the one I've released yesterday, where went around looking for signs of spring, and it was just I've got to hide just fairly locally by a side of a pond, and there were some ducklings there, and then I walked down to the local farm shop, and there were some baby lambs, and it was just so lovely to be out in nature and just it takes you away from it. I can remember some really standout moments where, say, for instance, when I went to Iceland, because that was very influential in me starting the channel, um, because I was just got these lovely landscapes and several of them you just stood with your mouth open almost. And I remember doing the fist pump because it was just I can't believe these locations. And next week we're going to Whitby, and one of the best sunrises that I've ever had was on the beach in Whitby. The whole sky just lit up, and it was just amazing. Um, and I think now, starting my own business, because I gave up teaching 5 years ago and started my own tutoring business, it's given me time to concentrate a little bit more on the YouTube channel and the photography. And my goal now is to take photographs just for me that I enjoy, and hopefully people that watch the videos will enjoy looking at the videos and the photographs as well. And so, would
Mm.
you like to tell us a bit how you moved from your nursing profession into starting your own business as well?
Yeah, it's funny because it seems like you already had the kind of notion behind you there to leave kind of teaching
Mm,
and go on to do your
mm,
tutoring and everything else. For
mm,
me, it was a completely different story. I never ever intended to have my own business, to be self-employed. I didn't think it was possible. I was brought up in a family where everybody had um, you know, I don't know, I wouldn't call them normal jobs because nowadays loads of people are self-employed, but they worked in positions and roles within organizations and groups. And I didn't have anybody, family or friends, or even parents of friends who had their own businesses. So it was never something that I ever even considered. But when I was trying to leave nursing, I knew I wanted to work outdoors, and I started doing a lot of voluntary work with conservation charities in Scotland. So charities like Trees for Life, the RSPB, the Scottish Wildlife Trust. Um, I'd the last year of my nursing, I was just doing bank work. So I got rid of my contract and I was just doing relief work. But I got plenty of shifts, but it meant I could take like weeks off here and there to go away and do this voluntary work. And I kind of thought that I would end up working in conservation. And I actually did a year's internship in the transition out of nursing with a conservation charity, where I got free accommodation and could live there for the year and work for them as a volunteer intern. And all I had to do was pay for my food. So I did that for a year in the hope that I'd get a job at the end of it, but soon realizing how competitive it was and how about 80 people were going for the one job. And it would have meant quite an unstable lifestyle of moving around to different reserves, different locations for a number of years before even standing the chance of getting anything permanent. Um, so I kind of was at a bit of a loose end, and I was very fortunate at the time to meet my partner who supported me as I transitioned into doing trying to set up a business. But it was strange because it was just like I'd been doing YouTube for about 2 or 3 years while I was still nursing, and it was slowly growing. And when I kind of was thinking, what am I going to do with my life? I thought, maybe I'll just start trying to run workshops. I'll start trying to do more with my YouTube channel where I can maybe get some sponsorships or maybe do some kind of tourism influencer work I was kind of doing at the time, where I was getting paid to travel to different parts of Scotland and showcase different areas, um, and just earn little bits of money here and there. And then slowly over the last few years, it's kind of snowballed. But it's only been in the last year and a half that I've got to the stage where I'm earning enough money now to comfortably live, pay for everything that needs to be paid for. I wouldn't have been
mm.
able to do it without my partner, to be honest. I probably would still be banking as a nurse. So yeah, it was a weird transition for me because it was never, like I say, something that I ever considered even doing. It just kind of happened. And the more I was kind of putting into my YouTube channel and my photography, the more opportunities were coming my way. And I started working with big brands like Nikon, which has just been incredible for me. Um, so yeah, that's kind
How
of
did
how it happened.
how did that come about? I'm quite fascinated how you got that connection with Nikon.
So I've always used Nikon cameras. I've never used any other
Hmm.
brand. And I was basically doing some research about 4 years ago, and I realized that nearly all of their ambassadors were male. So I actually reached out to them and, said, you don't seem to have any female ambassadors. And they offered to lend me, at the time, their Z cameras had just been released. So they offered to, which is their mirrorless system. They'd offered to lend
Mm,
me one of their new cameras for a month and see what I thought of it. At the end of that month, they ended up signing me up as a Nikon creator, which means I'm not an ambassador, but I create content with Nikon cameras, and I have a partnership with them, which means we have this really good relationship where I get opportunities to do things, and they, you know, obviously get promotion for me using their products. So it's just a lovely relationship, really. So that's kind of how it came about. It was an opportunistic moment where I just thought, hey, there's no women ambassadors here. Like, there's kind of like, what's going on? Let's just reach out and see what they say. So yeah, it was. I think it's just one of these moments, isn't it, where you notice something that's missing
Mm,
somewhere, and you just think, I wonder why this is, and just reach out and see what happens.
the right place at the right time, definitely. Um, with my
Yeah.
channel, it tends to be more. It's certainly a hobby for me. It's not. I've got no intentions of it becoming a business. Certainly, it's not big enough anyway at the moment to support myself. As you said before, my transition into my tutoring was fairly organic because I'm still doing what I enjoyed doing when I was a teacher, just without any of the red tape. And so now I'm
Mm,
literally just teaching, and I can do um, what I want, my own curriculums. Um, if I did want to do something slightly different one night, I could move my students around and do something different. But it just gives me loads more freedom. Um, I'm so much more relaxed, and I'm in a much better headspace now that I'm not in the rat race as such. Um, but I was always similar to yourself in the same situation where at one point, I wouldn't have been able to consider getting out of a stable job with a stable pension. And ultimately, down the line, I'm really glad that I did it, because now I go to
mm,
bed without setting an alarm. Um, I can I don't get up late by any means, but when you're not going to bed and thinking about the following day, or waking up thinking I've only got 2 hours more before the alarm goes off, it's a completely different way of thinking, and I'm so much happier
mm.
now because of it. Um,
It's a scary
I was
transition though, isn't it? I think, like,
Oh,
a lot of
totally.
people couldn't do it. Like, my family still there's still people in my family that don't understand, like, how are you earning a living? Like, you don't have a stable income, you don't how can you do this? How can you do that? Um, and it is a terrifying transition, and sometimes you do just need that person there to support you through it, or that kind of vision. But I'm sure you'll agree now, once you've been self-employed in whatever area you do that, there's no going back. Like, I don't think I could ever work for an organization again unless I absolutely had to. If everything fell to the ground and I just wasn't earning any money at all, like, then of course I might have to go back and do that. But I think once you've been self-employed
Mm,
and you see the benefits to your well-being, and the fact that you're actually doing something in a way that really speaks to you, like you say, without that red
mm,
tape, without all the rules and regulations and all that fear. That's one thing I struggled with in the nursing profession, was you had these codes of conduct, which of course, you need them to safeguard your patients, but it was constantly drummed into you. If you make one mistake, you could be struck off and lose your job. You could even go to
mm,
jail. Like, you were being taught, like, this was cycling through your head all the time. So it was
mm,
just, and there was no time for that kind of personal connection and emotional support that I really wanted to give patients. And I just had this constant fear. And the great thing of doing what I'm doing now is I'm kind of doing what I love, and I'm trying to help people with their well-being, but through photography and nature.
mm,
And it's just so much broader and more open, and I can truly be authentic to my beliefs and my loves. So yeah, I'm glad you found that as well. Your love
mm,
for teaching has continued, but you're now able to do it in a
definitely.
way that really resonates with you.
And in a certain way, I do bring it into my YouTube channel as well. I do try and teach about how to use a camera or composition, and hopefully, based on some of the comments that I get, people tend to enjoy watching, and it's a fairly relaxed and enjoyable experience. Because I try and be engaging and put over my enthusiasm as well. That is the main goal. And you've just kind of touched on my next question, really, because you've just mentioned your channel being a nurturing space. Um, I did get a comment a while ago from a guy in New York, which still baffles me that people all over the world are watching our content. Um, and this guy said that he'd suffered from mental health issues, and watching my videos had helped him um, get into a space where he felt he could get out with his camera again. And I had quite a bit of back and forth with him, but that just felt so good that I'd made a difference to somebody. And I quite often get really lovely comments from people who've enjoyed what I do, and it just blows me away. And I know you've probably taken it a step further through what you do on your channel, because I think the video that I mentioned at the beginning that I watched a few weeks ago, your mindset video, really did resonate with me as well. So would you like to say a
Mm.
little bit more about how you have developed the nurturing side of your channel?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a massive process for me because it never used to be that way. That it used to be very much about the enthusiasm and the inspiration to get outdoors. And I've fallen into the trap so many times of being inauthentic to myself in doing certain maybe marketing or brand or gear style videos or technical style videos. But it's like, that's just not me. It's only been the last 6 months that I've really realized, I guess, who I am and looked back at my life and my nursing career and just thought, I used to see them so separate. Nursing and photography is so separate, but actually it's not, because I got into photography for my own health and my own well-being. And if it can benefit me and my health and well-being, then I can bring my knowledge from nursing together with the knowledge I've learned on my own journey and help others. So that's kind of my goal moving forwards, really. It's to, not goal, but my kind of intention, I guess, is to just keep inspiring people to pick up their cameras, to get outdoors, and slowly putting like nuggets of information in there that may just help to open people's minds up to all the benefits that it can bring. So yeah, I really like to see people benefit from the content I put out there now. It's not, I think there's been a shift recently. It's not about me anymore creating content, because yes, I still create content because I love it, but it's like I'm trying to think now when I'm creating a video, I'm enjoying this, but what can the viewer get from it? Can they get some information? Can they get an experience? And it's not always what I'm saying. It's sometimes how I edit the videos or what music I use or anything like that.
Mm.
So I think it's just about becoming true to who you are and what background you've come from. And because you've come from a teaching background, it's more natural for you probably to teach like
Hmm.
photography or your process and teach what it's done for you. Whereas for me, it's like my background's in health and well-being. So it's like, for me, it's like, what can photography do for people's health and well-being? And that's my kind of what I'm always thinking about now when I'm out and about. How am I feeling? What is this doing for me in a positive way? And how can I then reflect that through the videos that I'm producing? So yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely made me think about how I'm going to put over some of my videos now, because it sometimes it gets to be quite tricky when you trying to put out a video per week, trying to think of an idea, because sometimes I will think, oh, where can I go, what can I do, and it is so tricky sometimes to actually come up with something. But a couple of weeks ago, I just went to my local nature reserve, and it was just literally a vlog style video, but I was really happy with how it turned out. I saw a nut hatch coming in out of a tree in a little hole, and it was just lovely to just see all of these things that if you weren't out, you wouldn't notice. And in a way, I think I've not given it as much, definitely anywhere near as much thought as you've given it, and psychoanalyzed why I do um, what I do. But I do think that I've got some similar attitudes towards why I actually produce the videos that I do. Mainly, they are for me, because I started just as a way of documenting me trying to find a genre of photography that I could really get back into, because I'd been taking photographs since the early 2000s, but I'd gone down the competition route, um, and done quite well. But it got to the point where every time I went out with a camera, I was only pressing the button if I thought this shot could win a competition. And it got to a point where I thought, this is just the wrong thing to do. And so I pretty much 6 years ago stopped entering the camera club competitions. I'm still part of the camera club, and I enjoy the interactions that I get from it. But the competition side just seemed to be just counterproductive, really, because a judge had come along who had got an opinion and I didn't agree with it. And I'm a camera club judge myself, so I know how tricky it is. You've got to take them with a very much pinch of salt. But I got to the point where I thought, well, I've got pictures on my wall here that I love because I've got a connection with them. Um, Things that mean something to me, but I know for certain that if I put them into a competition, they just get slated for too much sky, or it's too central, or it's not central enough. Oh, all kinds of silly rules that camera club judges have. Um, but I do and still enjoy that connection that I get from the camera club. And I know that you've taken this again a step further, and you've just launched your Photographic Connections website, haven't you?
Yeah. I mean, what you've just said there has been reflected back to me so much over the last few years. I've been running workshops and mentoring clients, and especially my mentorship clients. A lot of them are in camera clubs, and they struggle because they've gone because they want to learn, because they want to meet people, and they
Mm.
want to go on like field trips out with people. But their thing that's reflected back to me time and time again is the competitions. They're like, we don't want to be entering competitions every week or every month. And they also, a lot of people have reflected back that when they do enter competitions and they don't do well, it's not always spoken about why haven't they done well, and they're not always given the time with the judges or whatever to help them improve. Um and I just find it really interesting because I'm not averse to competitions at all. In fact, this year I've entered a few of the bigger competitions, or I'm going to be the ones that are coming up. I'm not adverse to them, but it's about. I realise that doing photography, it's about a personal experience. It's about you, and like it is sad. I think when people get to the stage that you got to, where you are just like, I'm only going to take this image if it might win a competition, because it just takes the
Mhm.
fun, the enjoyment, that connection away. And I actually read something really interesting on Instagram the other day. Somebody had written, when you go outdoors with the compositional rules in your head of, I have to find a rule of thirds, I have to find a leading line, it stops you being creative because you will not put things in different parts of the frame or have wide open spaces. And it really limits what you can create. So yeah, I've just launched Photographic Connections, which has a lot of different branches to it, but a lot of it has come off of me trying to work out what I want to do with my photography that can benefit others, but also the reflections of things that have come back to me. So Photographic Connections is basically an online community where we
Okay.
have a weekly podcast episode, which is released every Monday, which is going to have guests on from all over the world, just talking about their photography journey and what photography does for them. There's also monthly photography challenges, which have absolutely no rules and they're very open. So the first month, which is out just now, which is April, is about going out and photographing your favorite color. So you can photograph that in whatever way you want. And it's just about getting people outdoors to photograph something that really means something to them. So yeah, it's like that inclusivity of, not you have to follow this rule, you have to follow that rule. It's like, this is your subject matter. Just go out there and create whatever you feel drawn to create based around the topic. And that's going to continue. Every month there'll be a different topic, but there's going to be no rules other than, this is your topic, interpret it as you'd like to. And then there is a membership side of this community as well. So for people who sign up to be members, every month I'm hosting a live webinar which links to the topic. So I've got my first live webinar in a few days' time, and it's called An Introduction to Colour. So I'm going into the psychology of colour, why people are drawn to certain colours more than others, what each colour represents, and also what different colours can do for your well-being. And then when people go out to do photography, they're kind of connecting the well-being and the psychology together with the images they're then creating, and it just brings more meaning and I think a personality into their own photography work. And then the members also have a closed Facebook group where we share all our ideas and ask questions. And we're going to have a check in every month, because I realize that connection is something people are really needing right now. A lot of people are feeling, even though we've kind of got past the difficulties of the last few years, people are still feeling quite lonely and isolated. So I've created this kind of members community where we can meet up every month and just talk about our photography, talk about life, and
Mhm.
what our photography journeys may be bringing up for us. So yeah, it's kind of, Photographic Connections is a mix of things that I'm hoping will inspire and benefit people in whatever way they need it, basically, and it'll hopefully speak and resonate to people that are interested in just doing something a little bit more personal with their photography, and who want that kind of well-being and connection element that's not always available in other places, like in camera clubs, for instance.
Mm.
But it's good. There'll be a lot of people that don't resonate with what I'm doing, and that's completely fine. But there will be people that are. So it's just about, you know, finding the right people that need what you're offering, and hopefully there'll be a number of people that are interested. So yeah, we'll just see how it grows and develops as the months progress.
No, well, I've signed up, and I can't make the webinar live, but I am going to be joining the Zoom call at the end of the month, because I'm looking forward
Brilliant.
to it. It's just something different, and it's really good for you to actually be doing something to give something back to the photographic community. And I'm sure it'll do really well, because I think there is definitely a need for it. So we're looking forward to seeing how it grows and progresses. Now, one of the things that
Thank you.
one of the things you mentioned was not resonating with people, um, and the video that made me reach out in the first place was a mindset video. And this really, in that video, you talked about 5 things that people go out with the wrong mindset. And sometimes people hear the word mindset and mindfulness and think it's a little bit new age and a bit woo and all that kind of thing. But really, I know when I was teaching, I did a lot of mindfulness training. And really, all it is just training your mind to think about the here and now, and rather than everything else. And it's something that photography really does allow you to do, because when you're out with a camera, you are thinking about the job in hand. You're not worrying about all the other things that are going on in other parts of your life. And so I just want to touch a little bit briefly on some of the things that came up in that video, because I think they're quite interesting. For obviously, if people want to see that video, they can go over to your channel and watch the full video. But while we're here now, one of the things that you mentioned is people just feeling that their images are rubbish. Um, and I think a camera club is, like you said earlier, going to reinforce that. If there are people that are constantly doing bad in competitions, or not scoring very well, or constantly getting bad comments, um, they will start to be very negative about their photography. And so how would you go about counteracting that?
It's really difficult because as human beings, I've kind of read this in some psychology books recently, but as human beings, we naturally gravitate towards the negative. Like when somebody says something negative to us, we hold on to it because we are made in a way that we want to be liked and be part of a tribe. So the moment somebody says something that rejects that, we hold on to it. And actually, in a few podcasts time, I'm interviewing a guest who speaks about this. He's a YouTuber as well, and he speaks about you'll always focus on that one negative comment. So I think if you are, I do find in life when you surround yourself with the right people, with the right mindset, the right. We're trying to explain mindset here, but when you surround yourself with people who are more open, more positive, and more accepting of you, and open-minded to the opportunities, then it's infectious. It's energy. You naturally pick up on that. And I've noticed that in my life. If I spend a lot of time with negative people who are constantly complaining, being judgmental, being critical, it brings you down, and you start feeling rubbish. And it just takes, one or two people to come across in your life that are more optimistic and happy and open-minded, and it just starts playing off on you. But there's a lot you can do yourself. And you mentioned mindfulness there. And mindfulness is huge. It's something that is
Mm.
becoming spoken about a lot now. And especially in like sort of Buddhist traditions, mindfulness comes
Mhm.
from often meditation, but you don't have to sit in silence and meditate for 10 minutes to practice mindfulness. A lot of photographers do it without realizing. You're literally on
Mm.
location, immersing your senses in what's going on, looking at the light, and you're not thinking about anything else. You're in that present moment. And that's what mindfulness is. It's about being in the present moment, not thinking
Mhm.
about the past or worrying about the future. And it is a practice. They do call it mindfulness practice. And I'd encourage everybody to do it every day. Just take 10 minutes off your phone, off the internet. just go and stand outside, just take some deep breaths and just spend 10 minutes doing nothing but looking at the world around you. And you'll slowly begin to feel more present in other aspects of your life. And that can really rub off on your photography, and you then feel more positive and open minded, and you're more likely to try different techniques, different styles, and photograph things that you've never thought of photographing before, which can lead to some really interesting images. So, yeah, it's a process and
Mm.
it's almost like a devotion, but anybody can do it. Mindfulness is free, it's available to everybody. And somebody that's written a lot of really good stuff about mindfulness actually is the comedian uh, Ruby Wax. She's
Oh
got
yeah.
some really interesting books and even courses and stuff that goes in quite deeply to mindfulness. So, and she
Mm.
puts a really interesting, funny spin on it as well. So people don't want the kind of what you referred to there as new age stuff. You know, if you listen to somebody like Ruby
Mm.
Wax speaking about mindfulness, it just shows you that it's accessible to everybody and you can view it in different ways. So yeah.
Mm. Well, I've got a shed out in the garden that I've converted into a bird hide, and there's a little hole in that I can stick my camera through, and I can quite happily go and spend an hour or two just watching the birds come to the feeders and taking a few photographs. And the time just flies away, and it's just and that's really all you need to do. You just need something. Definitely, you hear so many people now that have not got a hobby, that just get completely fixated with work, and that's the whole life, and the whole life revolves around um, getting from one day to the next, going to work, and um, just like you said, having some small outlet just can really help. And it's just taking yourself away and just giving yourself that moment of calmness, and it can really, really super be beneficial. I'm definitely into it.
Yeah.
I know when I first
100%.
started, when I first started, and I don't suppose it ever really goes away. Perhaps it's because I'm a male rather than a female, but I'm very much a tech-based person. I think one of the things that probably got me started was my first digital camera, and it got lots of buttons and all the bells and whistles, and you're always looking for the next one that's coming out. And got my eye on the Z8 on the horizon. Um, but a lot of people um, think that they can't take photographs because their gear isn't good enough. Um, and again, that's not the case, is it?
No, 100% that's not the case. In fact, one of my favorite images I've ever taken, I took about 2 years into my photography journey on an entry level DSLR, and I'm sure it was a kit lens as well. It was a Nikon
Mm,
D3200. Um, but because we had beautiful light and I got the composition really nice, it's one of my favorite images I've ever taken, and it excels for me any of the images I've taken on my higher end mirrorless camera. So yeah, gear is not an shouldn't be a barrier, and we've been made to believe for years that it is. And there's a lot of groups out there that will look down on people who have got entry level cameras. You're not a proper photographer, people have been told over the years, but you know, you're doing photography because you love it. And um you know, unless you're wanting huge images to like blow up on billboards or something, you know, you can do whatever you
mm,
want really on that. And even nowadays with the development of phones, which I know is a very controversial topic, but some phones nowadays take incredible images and you've always got your phone on
mm,
you. So if you don't have your camera with you for whatever reason, you can still do photography and they still look brilliant online, and they still in many cases can be printed if you want them to. So yeah, I would anybody
yeah,
listening to this who thinks that gear is a barrier, it's 100% not.
it's
But
not.
if you are doing
Mm,
styles of photography like astro, then it can be difficult to get really high quality good images on entry level camera. But the vast majority
yeah.
of genres of photography, you know, yeah, an entry level is completely sufficient.
Absolutely, and some of the bird photography that I do, without my long lens and fast shutter speeds, then you just wouldn't be able to do it. But I think one of my I've got, it's difficult to pick out a favorite photograph, but one that comes to mind. I took on a bridge camera way back in the early days. It's um, when I got engaged to my wife. I asked her to marry me on the shore of Lake Windermere, and just at the moment after, a ray of sunlight just came down and hit the water. It was quite special. Now, it's not the most special photograph, um, but that moment where that one single beam of sunlight came down and hit the lake, I just managed to capture because it was there fleetingly and then went again. And when we got married, I asked the photographer to match the lighting conditions so the sunlight was behind us, and I've cut us out and put us on that photograph as well. So it is quite special, but it would get crucified in a competition. But it's something that I feel a really strong connection to, and that's what photography should be about.
100%. I think it's just going back to
Mm,
photographing what speaks to you. We've lived in a world, not just in the
mm,
photography world, but in so many ways for years now, where we've been so restricted by rules and in so many aspects. And I feel things are opening up now. People are being given the freedom again to self-express themselves
mm,
in creative ways. And the more creative and open-minded we can be with our own journey and create images that mean something to us, that image, until the day you die, you will love it. It's like
yeah.
it's a memory of that moment. You'll never forget it, and you'll always be able to look at it and smile. And does it matter what anybody else thinks? No, it doesn't, because it's your special moment. And I actually
Yeah.
find sometimes you can look at images that photographers or judges would say aren't great, but the moment you listen to the photographer speak about why they photographed that, what happened, leading up to that
Mm,
moment, it brings it to life. The story behind an image is often so much more powerful than just the image on its own. So yeah, I love listening to photographers showing images and then speaking about why they photographed it, because it just brings it to life. Even the most basic of image, it's just like, wow, I can see now what you were feeling and why you photographed that. And it just, yeah, people don't ask that in competitions. They just look at the technicalities. They don't ask, why
yeah.
did you photograph this and what did it do for you in the moment? Maybe that's what we need to do, set up a photography competition that's like all about stories. What is the story behind this
Mm,
image? What does it mean to you? And then, yeah, who
mm.
knows? Maybe that could be something that comes in the future.
Yeah. But the other thing is people thinking that you do have to go somewhere really spectacular to get amazing photographs as well. And just just recently, as I mentioned earlier in our conversation, I went to the local farm shop and just sat by a pen full of lambs, and really the photographs are nothing special at all. They're literally just records of these lambs. And I did try and get interesting compositions, but you've got all of the bars in the background and all. But I got one out of the pen, and they were just so cute and friendly. And um, somebody did, because that video went out a couple of days ago, and somebody commented it was the best one ever, full of feel good factor, and it was like, really? Oh. So that clearly meant something to somebody else as well.
Mhm. It shows the subjectivity of it all. I get that all the time. Sometimes I put a video that I'm like, I don't really, this video doesn't quite work for me, but I'm going to put it out because it's still a story and it's still a journey. And I don't expect people to
Yeah.
like it, because I know it's not my best video, but there'll always be people that say, wow, that image or that moment. And you're like, I wasn't even going to put that image in the video, but like, it just shows
Mm.
the subjectivity of photography. Every single person will see something different in your images, and every person will also take something different from your videos as well. So it's interesting. Sometimes it's like, if you take something and enjoy the process, just share it, because even if it's not your best work, somebody will resonate with it, and it shows you're human as well, which is lovely.
Excellent. Well, I think we're probably coming about to the end of our conversation. It's been really interesting. If people want to find out more about you, they can visit your YouTube channel. And that's there at the bottom of the screen, visualizing Scotland. If you search for that, and you've also got a YouTube channel, sorry, a website as well. Um, that and what kind of things can people see that you offer if they go to your website?
Yeah, so on my website, visualizingscotland.co.uk, you can find dates for all my upcoming workshops and my mentoring as well, which I'm currently in the process of reevaluating. But yeah, any workshops you fancy coming up to the northeast of Scotland and undertaking, you can find on there.
Brilliant. It's been a really lovely conversation today, and I hope people have enjoyed listening to us having a chat. And we'll go over and check out Kim's work on her YouTube channel as well. So thanks, Kim, ever so much for this conversation this morning. It's been absolutely fascinating.
You're very welcome, Darrell. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I do hope you've enjoyed that video and found it useful. Talking to Kim was really fascinating, and I hope that you found something that will help you to enjoy your photography more, but just help you think about it in a slightly different way. Now, if you have enjoyed this video, do let me know down below in the comments, or nip over to my Vero account, that's at doakdenphotography. Leave me a comment there, and you can also see lots of my photographs. Now, if you like what I do on the channel and want to help support me to make future content like this, you can also visit my Teespring store, because there I've got a range of merchandise on offer, and a purchase really does help me out, and it's very much appreciated. And also, don't forget the super thanks button as well. But you don't have to spend any money at all to support the channel. You can do that simply by clicking like, subscribe and the bell notifications, because it really helps me out and it makes sure that you don't miss out on any future content. Watch out for next week's video, that goes live on Sunday. In the meantime, go and check out this video just up here. But all that's left now is to say, stay safe, and I'll see you soon.